What's up guys, Jonny May here and welcome to this week's quick tip where I'm going to teach you the easiest way to solo over any jazz standard regardless of the number of chords and regardless of the key that you're in. Now, one of the most confusing things for jazz students is when they open up a tune like All the Things You Are and they see a bunch of chords and they're not really sure which scales to use to improvise over those chords. Well, guess what? You can actually use your major scales to improvise over just about any jazz standard and it'll sound great as long as you understand which major scales to use. So in today's quick tip, I'm going to teach you how to identify which major scale you can use over a given chord progression using the dominant 7 identifier, and then I'm going to teach you how to connect your scales in an interesting way. Once you understand this, you'll be able to improvise over any jazz standard comfortably and confidently. Now before we start, I want to mention that we're running our summer special over at pianowithjohnny.com for up to 50% off the membership. I'll put a link to that below and let's go ahead and dive into the lesson. Alright, we're going to be looking at the chord progression for All the Things You Are. This is a very famous jazz standard. Okay, so you pull open a tune like this, you see all of these chords in the song, and you're thinking, what scale do I use to solo? Well, guess what? You can create a very cool sound using simply your major scales. This is how I might solo using major scales. Okay, so you can create some very cool sounding lines using these major scales. But which major scales am I using? So this is the big question. How do I look at a chord progression like this and identify which major scale I can use over a series of chords? And the trick for doing this I call the dominant 7 identifier. Okay, and here's the idea is you want to look for the chord in the song that is a dominant 7 chord, because once you find this chord you'll easily be able to determine which major scale that you can use to improvise over that section of the tune. Okay, so if we look at all of these chords, let's try to find our very first dominant 7 chord. So the first chord is called F minor 7. We'd play it like this. Second chord is B flat minor 7. Okay, these are minor 7 chords. These are not dominant 7 chords. But look at our next chord, E flat 7. Okay, this is a dominant 7 chord. If you don't know your dominant 7 chords, your minor 7 chords, you can learn them over at pianowithjohnny.com. But this is our first dominant 7th chord. This is an E flat 7 chord. So this is the chord that we're looking for. This will tell us the key that we're in and therefore the major scale that we can use to solo over this chord progression. Okay, how do you determine the key that you're in? Well, you simply go down a 5th interval from the root here, E flat. Okay, so we're going to go down a perfect 5th interval and that puts us to A flat, okay? Meaning that there's a very good chance that this entire chord progression here is in the key of A flat, okay? And that happens to be the very next chord in this chord progression, okay? And the way to determine this is by playing all of your diatonic 7th chords in the key of A flat, okay? Your diatonic 7th chords are simply the 7th chords that come from your major scale. So if we take all of the notes from our A flat major scale and we build 7th chords on each one, we have our diatonic 7th chords, okay? And they go like this. Now, if you don't know your diatonic 7th chords, you can learn them for all 12 keys in our diatonic 7th chords course over at Piano with Johnny. I'll put a link to that below. But these here are the diatonic 7th chords in the key of A flat. They're 7th chords that come from the scale, okay? So if we go back up to this chord progression for All the Things You Are, you'll actually notice that the first 5 chords of this song are diatonic 7th chords from the key of A flat. This F minor 7, our first chord, is one of our diatonic chords in the key of A flat. It's the 6th chord from the scale, okay? If you look at the next chord, B flat minor 7, well, guess what? That is the 2nd chord of the diatonic 7th chords in the key of A flat, okay? And you can look at every single chord and you'll realize this. The E flat 7 chord is the 5 chord in the key of A flat. Even the next chord here, the D flat major 7 chord, is the 4 chord in the key of A flat. Therefore, you can use your A flat major scale to solo over all of these chords. Check it out. Okay, I basically used one scale over 5 different chords. And this is the way that professional jazz musicians solo over tunes, is by using the underlying major scale. Now, if you guys are enjoying this lesson, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for more videos just like this. So what you want to do is you want to start to think of chord progressions as belonging to a key or a home key. And so something you can do in the lesson sheet music is you can identify which key you're in. So in this case, we're in the key of A flat, and then we're starting on a 6 chord. So we're going to come here and we're going to say this is a 6 chord. We're going to use Roman numeral 6, and the chord quality is a minor 7 chord. This is a 2 chord, and it's a minor 7 chord quality, and this is a 5 chord with a dominant 7 chord quality. This is called analysis, harmonic analysis, and you can actually do a deep dive on harmonic analysis of jazz standards in our Analyzing a Jazz Standard course. I'll put a link to that below, okay? So now there's a little shift that happens here after our first 5 chords, F minor 7, B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7, D flat major 7, and then we go to this D minor 7, which does not belong in the key of A flat major, okay? What key are we now in? We're on a D minor 7, okay? Well, let's use that dominant 7 identifier to identify the key that we're in, okay? So this is a minor 7 chord. This G7 is a 5 chord. This is a dominant 7 chord. So this should tell us what key we're in. And the way to do this is we go down a 5th interval from the G down to C. And so this tells us, hey, we're in the key now of C major, all right? And so the way to do this is you go to your diatonic chords in C. Let's play our diatonic 7 chords. So we're going to play 7th chords on every note from the C scale. And is G7 one of those chords? It is one of those chords. This is the 5 chord in the key of C major, okay? In fact, the chord just before it, that D minor 7, is a 2 chord, and then we go 5, and this leads to our 1 chord, okay? This is a 2-5-1 in the key of C major. So you can say this here. You can say, okay, now we're in the key of C, and you could say this is a 2 minor 7. You can say 5 here, and then you can say 1, okay? So now, when I'm playing these 3 chords, I can use my C major scale to solo over these chords, okay? Now, how do we connect the A flat major scale and the C major scale to make it interesting? Well, you want to look for these little transition points. On this D flat major 7 chord, I'll be using my A flat major scale. But then there's a switch here to D, and you're going to use your C major scale here, okay? So you just want to connect your line. I might play my A flat major scale, and then here, and create a line like this, okay? So this is basically how jazz musicians solo over these longer chord progressions by using the major scale. I do want to mention that the lesson sheet music that you're seeing up here in the top left of the screen is downloadable and printable over at pianowithjonny.com. This also comes with a backing track, so I'll put a link to all of that below. You can download all of that. Let's look at the next few chords of all the things you are. We have a C minor 7. We have an F minor 7. A B flat dominant 7. To an E flat major 7, okay? So this B flat dominant 7 should tell us the key that we're in, okay? And the way to find this out is you go down a 5th interval from the B flat, okay? So if you go down a 5th, that's E flat, okay? This progression is very likely in the key of E flat. So how do we determine this? We play our diatonic chords, or diatonic 7th chords, in the key of E flat. So we take our E flat major scale and we build 7th chords on each scale degree. We have E flat major 7, F minor 7, G minor 7, A flat major 7, right? B flat dominant 7, C minor 7, and then D half diminished 7, okay? So if you go back up to this chord progression, the C minor 6, well, that's the 6 diatonic chord in the key of E flat, okay? F minor 7 is a 2 chord. B flat 7 is a 5 chord. So these are all chords that come from the key of E flat major. Even this A flat major 7 down here is the 4 chord in the key of E flat. And this is, by the way, why it's so important to know your diatonic 7th chords, is because it helps you to really understand jazz standards a lot better. Again, I recommend that you check out our Analyzing a Jazz Standard course to really understand this topic. Okay, so C minor 7, this starts us in the key of E flat. You could say, hey, this is a 6 chord, so we use Roman numeral 6. It's a minor 7 chord quality. F minor 7, you could say, hey, this is a 2 chord with a minor 7 chord quality. Okay, does this make sense? So you can use E flat major scale to solo over this chord progression. Right? And then finally here, A minor 7, D7 to G major 7. Well, what key are we in here? Look for that dominant 7 chord. We have A minor 7, D7, there's that dominant 7 chord. This should tell us the key we're in by going down a 5th interval from D down to G, and this looks like it's in the key of G major. So you play your diatonic chords in the key of G major. These are our diatonic 7th chords. Let's play them down below. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. And it looks like these chords belong to the key of G major because we have an A minor 7. That's a 2 chord, 2 diatonic chord. This is a 5 diatonic chord, and this is a 1 diatonic chord. So this chord progression is in the key of G. We'll say G with a colon, and we say this is a 2 chord, this is a 5 chord, and this is a 1. Okay, so what we just did is we took this bigger chord progression from a tune like All the Things You Are, and we simplified it down to 4 keys or 4 major scales that you can use to solo over it. Let's go ahead and play this with the backing track. I'll show you how to create some lines with this, and here's how we do it. Here we go, A flat major. I'm using A flat major scale to play all my lines. We're going to switch to C major. Now we're going to go to that key of E flat major. Same key, now G major. Isn't that a cool idea? Now, if you want to use more interesting ideas to create your lines, check out our soloing over a 2-5-1 chord progression, and also check out our scales for improv over 7th chords if you want to learn some more exotic sounding scales on this chord progression. All right, my friends, this concludes this week's quick tip, and if you enjoyed this lesson, I want to encourage you to check out pianowithjonny.com. We have over 800 step-by-step lessons in jazz, blues, theory, technique, improvisation. It is the full learning platform for all playing levels. Also, be sure to check out the Piano with Jonny membership. This gives you unlimited access to all of our courses, plus you get to be part of our live monthly events, including our live Q&As, our live workshop lessons, our student assessments, our weekly challenges. We have an awesome community and we have a ton of fun. And right now you can save up to 50% off the Piano with Jonny membership until June 14th. So I'll put a link to that below, and I'll see you in the next quick tip.